Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really powerful theory about why our most important systems, governments, markets, the big stuff, can seem totally solid one minute and then just completely fall apart the next.
All right, so let's get right into this. It's a mystery we've all seen play out, right? You have these institutions that feel like they've been around forever, they look completely unshakable, and then, boom, they just shatter. So what's going on here? What's the hidden crack in the foundation that so many of them seem to have? Now, the source material we're exploring today says this isn't just a case of bad luck or, some bad leaders making poor decisions. Nope, it's something deeper. It's a failure of architecture, a hidden flaw baked right into their design that basically makes this kind of sudden collapse, well, almost guaranteed to happen eventually. Okay, so to really crack this puzzle, we need to start with the basics, the usual suspects, if you will. The source points to three critical jobs that pretty much everyone agrees an institution has to do to survive. But here's the catch. Even these three things aren't the whole picture.
First on the list is something called regeneration. The best way to think about it is like a forest. A forest has to be able to regrow after a fire. Same thing here. An institution has to be able to renew itself. Its money, its people, the trust people have in it. If it can't do that, it just withers what? Next up, we've got alignment. This one's pretty straightforward, actually. It's all about making sure the institution's power and its money are pointed in the right direction, at its main goal. It's what stops the whole thing from getting sidetracked by, say, short-term profits or political games, instead of doing what it was built to do.
And the third piece of the puzzle is legitimacy. It's simple, really. People have to believe the institution is the real deal, that it's trustworthy. But, and this is a big but, that belief is super fragile. The minute an institution starts ignoring real problems or brushing aside people's concerns, that trust just evaporates.
Okay, so you've got regeneration, alignment, and legitimacy. They're all absolutely critical, right? But here's the kicker. Even when an institution seems to be nailing all three, it can still fall apart. So what gives? It tells us there's a missing ingredient, the secret sauce that holds it all together when things get tough.
And that missing piece, that master key that unlocks the whole thing, the source calls it institutional learning architecture. Think of it as the brain of the operation, the adaptive engine that lets a system actually change and get smarter without, blowing itself up. And this is where things get really interesting, because we have to separate the myth from the reality. We usually think learning is kind of fluffy, right? A good culture, some audits, maybe some meetings, but the source argues that's not it at all. Real learning isn't an accident. It's architecture. It's a hardwired system with official channels to actually change what the institution believes to be true. It's not just culture, it's straight up engineering. So what does this real learning look like? Well, according to the theory, it's a super disciplined three-step process. Step one, you have to actually listen to the bad news, the data that proves you're wrong. Step two, you need an official way to take that bad news and use it to change the organization's core beliefs. And step three, and this is the tricky part, you have to reconnect that new, smarter model back to the people in charge without causing a total meltdown. All right, so let's put it all together. This brings us to the most critical part. What happens when that learning engine is missing? Well, it's not random chaos. The breakdown follows a scarily predictable path to disaster.
See, without a safe way to learn, an institution does something that feels rational. It decides to ignore reality. And why wouldn't it? Admitting you're wrong can threaten the people in charge. It can shake things up. So it's easier to just pretend everything's fine. But all the while, this huge invisible gap is growing between the institution's little bubble and the real world. And this is that predictable chain reaction. It's a cascade. First, learning gets shut down. That leads to what's called model drift. What the institution thinks is true gets further and further from reality. Then, it starts spending money and hiring people for an obsolete world. Its power is aimed at the wrong targets, and now its legitimacy is hanging by a thread. It only works if everyone keeps believing a lie. And then, the shock comes. A crisis hits, the lie is exposed for everyone to see, and the whole thing just implodes. And look, this isn't just an abstract theory. The source uses a really clear example to make the point. Just imagine a public health agency that gets early warnings about a new virus, but the warnings don't fit their existing plans, so they ignore them. That single failure to learn spirals, and it leads directly to a crisis that was completely preventable. So here's the big takeaway from all this. These four things, regeneration, alignment, legitimacy, and learning,
They're not four separate ideas. They're all part of one unified system. Think about it. Each one needs to be protected from politics, and each one needs a formal way to update itself. You can't really have the first three in a changing world without the fourth. Learning is the one that allows all the others to stay relevant.
And that means the stakes are, well, they're about as high as they get. The paper ends with a really chilling conclusion. It basically says, without learning architecture, civilization adapts only through collapse. In other words, if our big systems can't learn, the only way they ever change is by breaking. Crisis becomes our only tool for progress.
Which leaves us with one heck of a question to chew on. It's not enough to design institutions that are built to last. We have to design them to learn. So the real challenge is, how do we do that? How do we actually build this capacity for constant, safe adaptation right into the DNA of the systems we all depend on? That's the puzzle this theory asks us to solve.